Well, good morning, friends. Today we're going to be looking at the hem of the garment in the ancient world, in the ancient Near East, and its significance and symbolic meaning, and some of the texts that mention the hem or use the hem. So, when we say the hem, we mean the edge of the garment. And so, in the ancient world, people wore tunics, cloaks, an outer garment, and on that garment there would be an embroidered hem. And a lot of times these hems were unique to families. So your husband had a hem, you would have a similar hem or the same hem, same with your children. So first of all, it was a mystical, symbolic extension of an individual before his God. And the hems were individualized. They were placed on the garments of the household idols. So the hem that you had on your God would match the hem that you wore on your garment. And in every home, in these pagan homes, they would have a household idol that they would use to do worship and to pray and do ritual acts and professions on before. The ripping of the hem was an act of spiritual violence, separating him from God. We're going to see this in a couple of our texts we're going to look at. It was torn from a woman's garment after a divorce. So when a woman would get married, she would receive her dowry. They would actually sew it into her hem. So she would become part of that family. She would get her husband's hem, and they would sew that dowry, the money, the metal, into her garment. And so when she got divorced, they would sometimes tear this hem to show that she was no longer under the protection of her husband. Same thing for a disinherited son. They would tear his hem off, showing that he was no longer a part of his father's house. He was no longer under the protection of his father, and vice versa. So if he wanted to restore or re-inherit his son, right, we have the story of the prodigal son. He says, bring the ring, which is your credit card, shoes, which basically means he's not going to be a slave in the house. And then he also says, bring the garment, put it on him. This was to show that he was re-inheriting him. And I believe when we look at the story of Adam and Eve, at the end of the garden scene, God makes clothing for Adam and Eve. He clothes them and then sends them out from the garden. So I think what the ancient reader would understand by that is that God was inheriting them. He wasn't disinheriting them as children. He gave them garments, but he was sending them out into the world to keep them away from the tree of life, so they wouldn't live in their sin forever. These hems could be pressed into clay to sign or validate contracts, called hem prints. We have many examples of these. Hem prints, nail prints, signets that would roll in the clay. Incantations were done over these hems in order to bless or even to cast out spirits. And the grasping of the hem of the god was an act of devotional petition or manipulation. Pagans, this is how pagans, it's what makes a pagan, is that through ritual acts and ritual professions, they get power, they control God, they make him do things. That's what a pagan does. So the grasping of the hem would be a ritual act to control, manipulate, force the god to do what they asked. To seize a man's hem was a powerful covenant petition. This was the strongest thing that you could do to somebody to make them do what you needed them to do. And we see this. We have texts that say things like from Kings that say, on such and such a day, I'm going to go to such and such a place, unless someone grabs my hem and keeps me from my duty. And lastly here, the Jews believe that Messiah would have healing in his hem. Right? Malachi 4:2, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in his wings. The wing is the corner of the garment, the edge of the garment. And that's going to come into play with the woman with the issue of blood. So what are some of our hem texts that we have in Scripture? So we have 1 Samuel 15, verses 23 to 31. So I'll go ahead and read. This verse. Then Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned. I have indeed transgressed the command of the Lord, your words, because I feared the people and listened to their voice. Now therefore, please pardon my sin and return with me, that I may worship the Lord. Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel. Samuel turned to go. Saul seized the edge of his robe, and it tore. So Samuel said to him, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today and has given it to your neighbor, who is better than you. Also, the glory of Israel will not lie or change his mind, for he is not a man that he should change his mind. Then he said, I have sinned, but please honor me now before the elders of my people and before Israel, and go back with me, that I may worship the Lord your God. So Samuel went back, following Saul. Saul worshiped the Lord. So, in this text, Saul has violated the rules of holy war. He's taken the things devoted to destruction, the harem. Samuel, when he finds this out, he's distraught and declares judgment against Saul. But Saul really isn't interested in forgiveness. Saul really just wants a show here. And so he reaches for that act of manipulation, the grasping of the hem. And ultimately Samuel says to him, God is not like your pagan gods. You can grab my hem and I'm going to change my mind, but God will not change his mind. So he's saying you can't manipulate God like this. You grab my hem, I change. Sure, I'll go back. I'll do what you asked me to do. But you can't do this with God. So we also have a couple more. We have in 1 Samuel 24, David. He's hiding from Saul. He's running from Saul. At one point he goes and finds Saul in a cave. He cuts off the hem of his garment. And his conscience smites him, probably because he realizes he's done spiritual violence against the Lord's anointed. So he goes to Saul and he says, look, Father, I cut off your hem. I don't intend to do you harm. And Saul says, oh, David, my son, is that you? And he relents, realizing that David could have killed him, but didn't. Jesus makes mention of the Pharisees and their broad phylacteries, their long hems, both, the hem of their garments, plus their tassels, their fringes of their garments. These Pharisees would have very elaborate and long and very visible hems in order to be seen by men, show how important they were. And then we have the woman with the issue of blood. She comes and she's desperate. She's spent 12 years trying to solve her problems, spending money, seeing doctors, and only things get worse. And so she knows from the scriptures that Messiah will have healing in his wings, in his garment, in his hem. So she reaches out and touches his hem, and she's healed. Her faith had made her well. And so, God honors this symbol, this belief and understanding that they had in this story here. And one more mention, we'll just mention Joseph's coat of many colors, which is really the coat down to the palms is actually what the Hebrew says there. It's a long sleeve coat. It's an inheritance garment. It's clearly showing his brothers that he is going to be the firstborn, having the double portion, even though he's not the firstborn in Jacob's house. He has many brothers older than him. And that's why the brothers are so upset, is that their father says that he's going to be the firstborn. He has this great elaborate inheritance garment. So the brothers, they decide they're going to get rid of him, and then they take his garment and dip it in some blood and bring it back to their father, basically saying, okay, well, Joseph's gone, so you can redistribute the inheritance now, essentially. So that's our text for today, looking at some of these great symbolic acts that we ultimately, as Americans and as Westerners, often don't understand, don't see. So things to keep in mind as you're reading. See something to do with garments and all these things. These are some of the things from their world. We'll see you next time.